Hey everybody, Aaron Luttrull with the Aaron Advantage podcast here. Just wanted to give you a real quick intro to this podcast I recorded with Harveer Singh. He is the managing broker for Howard Hanna Rand Realty in Jersey City, New Jersey. And we talked about a lot of great things about how to get into and be successful in the real estate industry. We spoke together on a panel in Las Vegas where we first met, and we really just hit it off, and we have some of the same mentality and thoughts on how to be successful. We wanted to share that with you. So if you're thinking about getting into real estate, or you're in the business and you want to be more successful, definitely check this one out. Harveer, my man, thanks for joining me today.
What's up, Aaron? How's it going? I'm happy to be here.
Happy to have you here. As I was saying before we started recording, I'm glad we made it on time this time because manufactured homes driving down the street causing traffic is something that I couldn't plan for before hopping on and recording today.
It's better than literally living a few blocks away from the Holland Tunnel that takes you into Manhattan. So it's all kinds of messed up out there.
Hey, traffic is relative. No matter where you're at, there's probably something people aren't going to like, right?
So true. So true.
So, well, hey, man, I appreciate you hopping on the podcast with me today. I wanted to talk specifically about you about information to help real estate agents who are thinking about getting into the business or trying to decide if this is really for them. Because I think a lot of people struggle with kind of figuring out who they are and what their place is in real estate. And I know that you and I kind of vibed real well when we were talking about social media back in Vegas. So I thought it'd be great to just kind of have you on, let you tell your story of how you got into real estate and kind of what got you where you are today.
All right, cool. So that's a loaded question. All right, cool. So this goes back a long time. I mean, I feel like every realtor has their origin story, and it was almost always never, I want to be a realtor when I grow up. It's like we just found our ways here somehow, right? And then we became successful. So for me, I am a CPA, and I went to college for that. I did the 5-year BBA MBA program, got my CPA, worked at Ernst & Young for a few years, realized how much I hated accounting. And and literally like jumped ship with I'm just not only the company, I jumped ship without a parachute with I was I'm not gonna do accounting anymore. I was just what am I gonna do? I don't know. I hate my life right now. So all I know is that I want to be done with it. So I just jumped ship, flew out of that plane with no parachute and somehow found my way. All right. So after I did that, look, I always make jokes and talk about how horrible accounting was, but look, in every aspect of my life, I learned something really important, and I learned a lot of important stuff out of being in the corporate world and kind of working in accounting, budgeting and learning about the numbers and the taxes and all that stuff, because I was a tax guy.
Right.
Super important when you're running your own business, right? So yes, I like to, make fun of it, but it was important. Then I jumped into the startup field. So I had actually, worked with a lot of startups. I was a CFO of one because of my accounting background. I was on the board of directors of another. I was actually, I don't know if do you know who Walt Frazier is? I know. He's the only Knicks player that got a ring. He's that guy with the funky suits always doing the commentating. So I was working with him on the startup too. So he came to my house and it was a cool time. Yeah. But again, the startup world, like anything, right, in the startup world, funding comes and goes. And so then you're always running around looking for the next thing, right? So I had slowly been, me and my family have always been investing in real estate. And I realized, I think this is also the reason why a lot of us got in, is that, man, our realtors sucked.
Dude, you nailed it. You nailed it. It happens too often.
Man, my realtor was so bad, and she's taking $30,000, this and that. I'm just what's going on here? I was like, all right. And I talked to my dad. I was like, look, I want to increase our profit margin. I'm just going to become a realtor, and I'll just manage the transactions for our properties. That's how it started. And then little did I know I would fall in love with this field, right? I just jumped in. I was, as you know, we're both very people persons, whatever. We love chatting with people and helping people. And it just became this thing where I just fell in love with, helping people and helping my clients. And so it started off with me being a realtor, right? And just doing well. And obviously we were both on a social media panel because we kind of took to that as well,
right?
And grew there. And then my passion for helping people, makes me happy. And obviously the management became an option that I actually initially didn't even think about. It was my manager who had put that thought in my head. And it's kind of one of those things where like the only limitations you have are the ones that you put on yourself. This wasn't even a thought. I was just like, I've only been in the business for like 4 years. Like, who would take me seriously? Right. And I never even thought that it would be something. And she was like, no, like, I think you'd be perfect for this. Right. So then it became this thing. I got my broker's license and I approached, for us as the Rands, I know you guys as FC Tucker. So
right.
I approached them. I was like, look, I'd love for you guys to open an office in my beloved Jersey City.
There we go.
It's my baby. I love everything about it. And they did it. It's been a ride. It's been an amazing ride since then.
That's awesome. I don't think I've ever told you my story about how I got into real estate, but I was in a different field entirely. In high school, I loved chemistry. I thought it was a lot of fun. I loved running reactions and doing all the stuff. And so I was like, you know what? I also want to be a business owner. So pharmacist. I can open my own pharmacy. I can do all this stuff. That'd be freaking awesome, right? So I went to Purdue for a year to be a pharmacist. I didn't get as far as you did. I didn't get all the way through, get the certifications. I made it about a semester and I was like, this is not for me. I don't like this. It's a wonderful profession.
I wish that's what I did. Yeah. Would have saved a lot of time.
Yeah, dude, I tell you, 19 years old, after my first semester of college, I went about 6 weeks of the second semester and I was like, done, I'm out. No. So I had a buddy whose mom owned her own brokerage and she needed somebody to work the front desk. And I was like, I need a summer job. Why not? Let's do this. And I was there for like 6 weeks and like you got bit by the real estate bug. And I just started doing all kinds of stuff for her. I've got a degree in finance because I'm like, you know what, real estate, better know numbers. It's good to have that going. Important. And quickly just rose through the ranks there. I started off just doing admin stuff. Then it was like straight up transaction coordination, graduated college, got into sales. And here we are 16 years later. And
so you were birthed into it, basically. You almost made my mistake, but you didn't. Yeah.
I thought about it. I was like, man, pharmacy, it makes good money. It would be a good idea to stick this out. But I was like, you know what? It's not for me. I don't feel it. I'm not passionate about it. And I think you're right. Nobody wakes up. I never woke up and said, man, I want to be a realtor one day. But now I'm like, I hope my kids do because it's great.
I literally wake up in the morning. I'm just like, wow, thank God. Like I'm blessed and feel so grateful that I found something that I actually love to do. Right. And that's another thing, I guess we're talking about, how we can help realtors is like, you do something that you love, you're going to be fantastic at it. Right. And that was what it was, is that my growth here is like when I'm thinking and strategizing in my head, this is an excitement for me. Right. Like if you're in a job, like I was in accounting, I wasn't sitting there and be like, ooh, how can I save this guy money? Like how can I make this guy richer and me stay where I am? I'm like, ooh, I'm excited to like help this person grow. I'm excited to go and work this deal and help this person get the dream home that they've always wanted, So it's exciting when you're doing something that you really love, and it makes a huge difference in just how happy you are in life and your production.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to get into something a little bit more. You said you were only in real estate for about 4 years before you got into management. And obviously you're passionate about helping share your knowledge and tell other people about what they can do to get more successful in this business. So if you were like talking to somebody who's thinking about getting into real estate, what are the most important things you think they need to consider before they just run out, grab a license and think that you're going to open doors and make checks?
Yeah. All right. So I like to be kind of like tough love when I get newer people in. And I know, like, look, as managers, we want to be like, recruit. Like, but I also don't want to like ruin somebody's life, So it's like, I need to set the expectations like immediately. Right. So I'm just like, look, it's not easy. The leads do not come to you right away, but this is a field that you could flourish in, you could grow, and you could make a huge amount of money from it. But you have to set your expectations correctly, right? So, you're not making 100,000. Some people do. So don't get me wrong. Like some people come in and they just kill it, right?
Yep.
But a lot of people, like the average, I think, is like making 20 grand in your first year in real estate is like a big accomplishment,
Right. Yeah.
So I tell them that because I remember I had an interview like last week and the guy's like, I have a full-time job. I was like, oh, so you're doing this part-time? He's like, no, I want to do this full-time. And he's like, how much money am I supposed to make in my first year? I'm like, how much? What do you mean?
What's this supposed to? Supposed to? That doesn't exist.
I mean, like, like, how much are you going to work? And like, how many friends, like how much are you going to work this year? And like, it's like, you can't have that answer. But look, if you have some sort of a support system, if you have some money saved up, or if you have a small part-time job that can kind of hold you up for your first year or two, and you could really grow something large and amazing in the real estate world. It's truly, I wouldn't say one of the easiest ways to kind of run your own business, but it's essentially like running your own business. Like, you can build a massive amount of money and doing it in a way that you actually enjoy it, right? But you just have to come in there thinking appropriately and not, having these fantastical ideas. Like, I had some kid come in, he's like, I want to be a millionaire. I'm like, all right, let's close your first deal.
Let's get your first lead.
Yeah, let's get your first check first,
I couldn't agree with you more on this. I had another buddy in one time, and he was telling me, like, when he's recruiting for his team, the first thing he does is try to talk them out of real estate. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to go that far, but
I do that though.
But I get that a bit. And I always tell people, I'm like, this is a great income potential, like some of the highest income potential in any field out there. But what you don't understand is it's not even an income floor. You can lose money every year when you're getting started, because it costs money to get licensed. It costs money to get educated. It costs money to generate leads. And until you close a deal, you got nothing coming in. So you need to have that nest egg set aside, ready to go, like you're saying, or something to hold you up, because it can be a very difficult process to get started. And it's really disappointing for some people, because they just think they're going to walk in. They watch all these shows like Love It or Listed, Property Brothers, and all this stuff. And they're like, real estate's so easy. And then they get in.
Selling Sunset.
Don't even get me started. I come home and my wife's watching that. I'm like, turn that trash off.
So true, bro.
But these people, like, they think it looks so easy. And I think that's also the things, like my friends, they look at how successful me and a buddy are, that we all grew up together. And they're like, I want to do what you do. And it's like, you don't see the 15 years that got me to where I'm at today.
Yeah, so true. Like, I tell people, like, look, it could take 3 to 4 years to get a full-time salary for like majority of people, right? Like, you're planting these seeds. You're working full-time hours and making like dirt money in the first couple of years, right? You're planting these seeds that won't sprout until sometime 3, 4, 5 years later, right? So like, I'm letting people know, and then all of a sudden they'll come up in a conversation next year. Right? Like, oh, my friend is looking for a place. Oh yeah, Harveer, mentioned this a bunch of times on his Instagram. Right. But like, but okay. And you mentioned about spending money, and in the startup world, they call that the J curve, which I think was very relevant here too. Because when I first started in 2017, I looked at it very much like a business rather than like another career where I'm just going to go in there and I'll try. It was more like, there is no plan B. It is, this is it. And I'm going in, and I'm going to like, once this was like after like it triggered that I liked this field, and that I was like, because at first it was, again, like it was a business decision. But then the second I was like, look, I'm going to put all my chips on the table then, because I kind of like this, and I want this to be something that I do.
Right.
So I spent money. I paid for leads in my first year. And like, I did make quite a bit of money in my first year, but that was because I treated it like a business, right? And the J curve, how that works is like, it's a J, right? So it's like, you're spending money, you're actually spending more money than you're making. And then eventually you kind of start going up, and then that's when you make the money. So you're actually like, just like a startup, you're not making money. Like Uber still doesn't make money, So it's like, you're spending a lot of money up front to build something. And yes, that's your E&O, your MLS fees, your board fees, your National Association of Realtor fees. And then on top of that, if you're paying for other things, like, look, we're blessed to be in an amazing company that gives us a lot. Right. For so little. But a lot of other brokerages aren't like that. They don't give you anything. I remember, like, there's some brokerages out there that don't have color printing. So it's like, I'm not even kidding. Yeah. Like, this is, so it's.
Yeah, the old adage you always hear from people is like, once you get into real estate, they give you a desk, they give you a phone, and you're on your own. And it's like, man, I was lucky to be with a company, like you said, that we've got a great infrastructure, great technology package and everything else. But more than that, which is what most brokerages, I think, fail on, is the training. Because most people don't talk about this, but when you get a real estate license and you have to learn all this stuff, when's the last time you used 90% of the stuff you learned about getting a real estate license?
No. I mean, like, no, nothing.
Yeah.
I should remember how many feet are into an acre. I actually don't remember that.
Yeah. So, and it's like, brokers are like, oh, great, you have a real estate license. Here, go figure it out, nobody talks about what it actually takes to build a business. And I think you've already kind of hit on that, where you're talking about you need to make sure you got that SOI, your sphere of influence, and the people and the relationships and stuff, and kind of planting those seeds. You know, buying some leads can happen. That's something that's out there. But if you don't have the money to do that, most people are starting at ground zero with nothing. And I think people look at this more as like a hobby or a second career and not as a business. And I think starting off looking at it as a business like you did is the way to go. I tell my kids all the time, and my full disclosure, my kids are 7 and 5, and I'm just, I tell them, hey, I'm putting money away for college for you right now. But if you decide you want to get into real estate, that's your business startup fund. You'll pay the taxes, but that money's yours, and you go ahead and you can get into it. And I would do the same thing you did. I'd start spending that money with that J curve, trying to get that deal going, and then really work on focusing on relationships, because that's ultimately what this business comes down to.
Yeah, no, and it is really, and so I was talking actually to another friend of mine, Ricky Maddox. He does insurance, right? Amazing guy. And we were just talking about like our similar topic. I actually interviewed him for something that I'm working on. And he was like, it's really about relationships. Yeah. And he was just talking about how hard he worked on relationships. Like his job was that, right? And he was like, I joked. I was like, yeah, you're like infiltrating their grandmama's house. Like, and he's joking because he's like, that's hilarious because like, yes, like he's like, I am breaking in and like, I'm going to treat their grandma like my grandma, like this and that. And like, it was hilarious, but it's so true. Like I say that real estate, and I always say this also, is like real estate is a lifestyle. It is not a job only. Like this is like you got to be okay with taking those calls at times that are inconvenient. You got to be happy to take those calls. Right. You got to always be selling yourself. Like, dude, look at this, right?
Pulling the sticker out. I know.
No, but like, look at how many. They're all in my pocket. Like, literally. Like I'm always selling anywhere I go. And like, I talk to something, I'm just like, oh, hey, by the way, this. And then all of a sudden everyone laughs and like, oh, it's Harveer's face on the sticker. But like I'm always selling, right? That's just what it is. Yeah. And it's just something that you have to be willing to give your all to.
Yeah. And when you're talking about always selling, man, I can't go to a restaurant and like sit through an entire meal without hearing real estate. I'm like, what? You got somebody in the house? Okay, my wife is just
you teasing me, naughty.
She's like, Aaron, can we just have one meal where you don't have to go talk to somebody? And I'm like,
serious.
Probably not.
I was like, no, my wife knows now. No, she's like, yeah, go. She knows what that means.
And here's the thing: there's so many people in real estate, and this is something that you say you always got to be selling yourself. So many agents just completely forget about the fact that they are a real estate agent when they're out doing their day-to-day and other stuff. Yeah. There are so many opportunities right in front of you everywhere you go. One of my best referral clients I've ever had. I've sold her daughter's house. I've sold her daughter a new house. I've done a market analysis for her. I sold her sister's house. I sold a second house for her sister. We met when she was making my sandwiches at Subway because it's close by and it's healthy enough that I'll go there frequently for lunch. We started having a conversation, and one day she's like, hey, you're in here all the time. What do you do? I was like, oh, I'm in real estate. If you know anybody who's ever thinking about buying or selling, I was like, they need to have a trusted professional. Do you have one? And she's like, not really. And I'm like, well, here's my card. And I've gotten 5 transactions out of it. And I have a great relationship and more referrals coming. And it was something that's literally right there. I do every day.
Another great point that you made. You always have to ask for referrals. I feel like people just assume, like I put all these videos up, my funny videos on my Instagram, but like you have to ask, right? Like you don't realize, and I'm a huge, and here's another reason for my success. If you don't ask, you don't receive, right? I truly live by those words. Like even my wife sometimes like, Harveer, like they're not going to do that. Like that sounds so weird. Like nobody asks for that. Right. I'm just like, no, I'm going to ask for it. Like, and we'll see if I get rejected. That's fine. That's fine. If they say no, okay. But at least I tried, right? Exactly. I think it was Wayne Gretzky. He was like, you miss every shot you don't take or something. Yes. It's you got to ask for everything. So you have to ask for referrals. And you could ask referrals from people that you think wouldn't necessarily do it. So I asked my attorneys, I asked my mortgage lenders, and they're just like, realtors never ask, like nobody's ever asked me for a referral. I'm like, yeah, well, here you go. Like, dude, now you got to do it.
You want to talk about that? She retired from the business, but one of the best referral partners I ever had was a lender. And like I had a buddy, he's like, why are you going out to lunch with lenders and doing all this stuff? They just want you to get their business. I said, bro, I'm taking her to lunch because she's sending me leads. He's like, what do you mean? I said, I've made $30,000 in commissions over the last year and a half from referrals that she sent my way. He's like, hold up, I'm doing something wrong. He's like, nobody's ever sending me leads from the lending world. I'm like,
did you ask?
Exactly. I'm like, have you ever asked? That's the thing is once you get into real estate, everybody's going to come to you and be like, can I have your business? Can I have your business? Can I have your business? And everybody's like, oh, let me talk about it. Let's see what we can do. And I always said, you know what? My name is my business. And before I put my name on anything, I want to know how you're going to work. So when
you got to vet
me a lead, I'll see how it fits together. And then we'll go from there. And that has sparked some fantastic relationships over the years.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly important. And it's also like when I say ask and you don't receive, like this position as a manager, I literally went to the CEOs of my guys, the Rands over here.
Yep.
And I created this presentation. We weren't in Jersey City at the time. And I'm just like, I created this presentation. I was like, Jersey City is the second largest city in New Jersey. It's the most diverse city in the country. Like blah, blah, blah. I was showing them the numbers. And like, I asked them, I said, we didn't even have an office. I was like, I'm asking you to buy a brokerage that I could run. Like literally that was my ask. And then they were like, all right, cool, go find one. Like that was it. It was simple. I was like, if I didn't ask that, I would never have gotten, I would never be here in this position right now. It's because I asked them and they were like, yeah, sure. Like they believed me. Obviously they're not going to do it for everyone, but like I proved myself over the years and like they believed that I could do it. And it was something that if you don't ask, you don't get it. So
yeah. And as you said, the worst thing that could have happened was they would have said no. And you were in a position where you're already being successful in real estate and you're making money and everything. So maybe they say no this time, but then the market starts to change or something happens. And they're like, Harveer did mention this one time that this might be a good idea and they can come back. No is not a definitive point. It's just a not right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then another opportunity might arise and then they'll think of you. And this reminded me of a really good book. It's called Rejection Proof. And a lot of people are scared of rejection. I would highly recommend you read that book if for any of your audience members. It's really interesting. It's 100 days of this guy going out there asking for ridiculous things, trying to get rejected.
Nice.
So it's really funny, actually. So he goes one time to I don't remember where it was. I think it was like a Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme. And he goes, I want donuts in the shape of the Olympic rings. And he went and they're just like, what the hell? And then the manager comes out and makes it happen. And this was this is a viral video actually. And it came from this book. It went viral, that whole thing. And she got everyone was she got a promotion and everything. But it was one of those things where he asked all these really ridiculous things. And a lot of times he got what he asked for. And sometimes he got rejected, but it's a really interesting book. So for people who are there's a fear of rejection. And I truly believe that the reason why some people don't do things is because the fear of doing it is greater than their perception of what they would get by doing it. Right. So you have to kind of transfer that a little bit. You have to start realizing, teaching your mind, what are the fears if you don't do it, right? Focus on that, right? And so it's important because I feel like most people are scared to take these type of risks of even asking a question. So.
Yeah. And, not even just asking questions, to transition a little bit. I think people are also fearful to just talk about real estate because they think they're going to come off as too pushy or too salesy and stuff. And they don't want to ask for those referrals and things because they think, oh man, this person's just going to think I'm coming to them because I want their money. And a lot of times they'll never talk about it. And then I've heard from agents in the office I manage, my cousin listed with this other person. Can you believe they would do
that's
that?
The worst. It's the worst.
And I tell them, it's happened to me. I've been there. And you know who I blame for that? This guy. That's my fault.
It's not their fault. It's your fault. Right. So true. It's so true.
And you gotta be that, you and I have adopted this social media persona for both of us. So it's I'm a public person. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to make people aware, but some people are just so terrified to try to do that. What do you recommend to people on getting out of their own comfort zone and just being comfortable in their own skin to try to ask and talk to people about real estate and just start those conversations?
So one thing that I know you always say, and I say it too all the time, is everyone already knows what you look like. So don't be scared of putting yourself out there, right? So I'm sure your audience has already heard that come out of your mouth. So I'm gonna skip that one. Now this is I am working on something about kind of breaking out of your shell and realizing like I was mentioning, you got to start small, right? When there's a fear to do something, it's usually something that you have to do the most, right?
Right.
So start small, right? Start with something like, if you're really that nervous of doing something that you're not normally capable of doing, go buy a t-shirt that you would normally never wear, right? Something that you think is like stupid and like, or that you would make fun of somebody wearing, just wear it. And then you're going to realize throughout that day, nobody cares that you wore that t-shirt, right? It's a small thing. In your head, you're like, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's so ugly, right? But you start small. You take these tiny little steps and do these tiny little things that make you a little uncomfortable. And then you're going to start realizing that nobody really cares about these tiny things. And then you build your way up and you start asking small. And then you could work your way up to asking bigger and bigger things for yourself and putting yourself out there. It's just... And then what I also say to people is write a list of all the things that you want to do, right? And then write a list of, if you did all the things that you wanted to do, what would your life be in the future, right? I would have a beautiful house. I would have a beautiful family. I would have an amazing car. I would have a bank account that I didn't have to worry about loans, And then make another list. All the things that could go wrong if you didn't do all that stuff that you're supposed to do, right?
Right.
I could be poor. I could be living paycheck to paycheck, and I could go down to my retirement and have nothing, or I could be alone at the end of my life, like whatever the hell it is. And you have to really visualize this terrifying thing that your life could be if you didn't do what you wanted to do. And then you just have to realize the fear of not doing it should be bigger, right? For me, for example, it's like, now I'm getting to the point where I need to get back in shape. And my head is like, for me to be the person that I want to be and believe to be, I also have to look the part, right? So my fear now is like, I'm not going to be the person I want to be if I don't get in shape and look the part. So that's a fear of mine now. And like that fear of not being who I want to be is massive. Like it's more important than me having 2 cheeseburgers. You know what I mean? Like it's that's the thing, and that's where you have to start transferring is your mindset.
Yeah. You hit on a few things. Like, first off, you're talking about buy the ridiculous shirt or something else and see what you care about. Second off, like, I used to be terrified of public speaking. Nobody believes that whenever I tell them that knows me now, but I thought it was like the most horrific idea I could ever come up with. Last night, I emceed an event with a buddy of mine, and we were both dressed like this.
I saw those photos. It looked great.
Yeah, and we had a blast, and everybody's like, how did you leave your house dressed like that? I'm like, bro, who cares? Like, you know how many people stop me? Like, can I take a photo with you? You look awesome. Yeah. This is so amazing. And it's something like in the past I'd be terrified to do, but you're 100%. Now it's like, what's the worst thing about doing that? Of stepping out of my shell, wearing this craziness. Now, what if I don't ever step out of my shell? And it's, I don't get to achieve the goals of the things that I want to do, which speaking in front of people now is something I love doing. I'm trying to build more awareness, do more stuff like this so I can help more agents, because I love training and speaking and all that stuff. But if I'm not willing to put myself out there and be a little bit ridiculous so strangers are comfortable coming and saying whatever they want to me, that's keeping me from getting my goals. And that's one of the things that I can't fathom not doing anymore.
Exactly. And you brought up a point and a story, right? For me, taking my first big step in public speaking. So I've always been like the type of personality that I am, like kind of like a fun, happy extrovert. Not always, actually. I was never like this, actually. This is something that I learned throughout my life. I was actually a very introverted, shy, kind of tormented kid growing up. I was made fun of. I was beat up, blah, blah, blah. Like, I broke out of my shell. And somebody eventually, like now, within the last like 3-4 years, was like, Harveer, like, we have a problem. Like, we have the India Day Parade at Jersey City's, like a big thing. It's like thousands of people go to it. Our MC canceled last second. It's happening next week. And can you please help us out and just help us MC this event? And I just immediately was like, yes. And then immediately after, I was like shitting my pants. I was like, oh my God, what did I just get myself into? I was like sweating at night. Like, I was scared, man. I was like, what did I just do? Like, this is terrifying. And I was on stage, like, with the backdrop of Manhattan. Like, it was literally, it was crazy. I have like photos of it. And so I just did it because I knew that I needed to do something. This was making me incredibly uncomfortable, but I knew that if I did it, it would be something that would be amazing for me, because then it would just make me break out of that one barrier that I had up for myself. and basically do something that I never would have done.
That's awesome.
And it was great. It came out to be an amazing event.
And I'll say, when we were out in Las Vegas and we did our panel, we went to so many panels while I was there where like the speakers never spoke to anybody. They didn't come out and do anything. Yeah. And me and you were like standing out there beforehand, like, hey, what you guys want to be in here? This is the best.
Yeah.
Harveers out here, like Aaron's buying shots. And I'm like, you're not even, you don't want to be in here. And just like having fun beforehand. And then after the fact, so many people came up and they're like, so do you and Harveer like know each other? Like you guys like played off each other real well. It like just seemed like you've been buddies. I've like met him today.
Literally
Zoom. That was
it. Dude, I feel like you, me, and Molly were like the ones that actually like made some noise that day. Like it was fun. Yeah, we were like literally. I was just like shouting at people. I was like, over here.
I don't know where you're going. The best one's in here.
This is over here. Like you got to be in here. It was good. And look, putting yourself and I was on another podcast and we were talking about how like introverted agents and extroverted. You don't have to be like you and me that are like crazy and out there to be successful in this industry. So you don't necessarily, I don't want people to believe that like you have to be this crazy outgoing person to be a successful realtor. There are so many realtors out there that are like killers in the game that are just phenomenal at what they do, but they're not necessarily like as out of their shells and crazy like we are.
It's true. And that's a good point to say, I always tell people, tell me about yourself when they're thinking about getting into real estate. What do you love? What do you enjoy? What makes you passionate? That has maybe nothing to do with real estate at all. And let's see how we can utilize that to formulate your strategy to be successful. Because, great real estate agents, the top three professions that always come to mind that when we get people who are coming in thinking about getting into real estate, that we're like, they're going to be a rock star. It's teachers, nurses, and bartenders, because they all have a heart for service.
True.
They all know how to talk to people, and they're all dedicated to what they've done previously. It doesn't matter what level of enthusiasm they have as far as how outgoing they are, how boisterous they are or anything. They are going to be able to talk confidently. They're going to be able to talk intelligently, and they're going to actually care about the relationship they have with people. And I think those three things are the most important things to being successful. It's not necessarily being the one who's the craziest personality or the loudest in the room. It's caring about your people, knowing what you're talking about, and being confident to do it.
And it's a service industry, right? Like you have to give the services. Like there's some agents out there that love to do cold calls. Like to me, like it makes me panicky when I think of cold calls.
I hate that.
I hate it. But some people are just like rise at like 6 a.m. and like make 5 hours of calls every day. And I'm just like, man, how do you do it? But they're killing the industry, right? And it's something that I can't do. And I don't feel comfortable doing that. But some people are really good at that. And you got to use your strengths, and your strengths are not, they're not going to be the same as the other person's strengths. That doesn't necessarily mean you can't be successful.
Right. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't know if I'm being distracted because I got people in the office coming through and wanting to say hi. Because stuff like this, it doesn't matter where you're at. If somebody wants to come and see what's happening.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course.
But you're 100% correct. We've got such a diverse group of agents that come through our office all the time. And, I can never tell. Like, it always makes me laugh. I'm like, this person's going to be a rock star because they may be like real outspoken and do all this stuff. And then they don't want to show up and do the work. And then somebody might come in who's kind of quiet and be like, man, you're going to have to focus. You're going to have to do some stuff. And then you just come in and crush it. We had one guy that came in, super nice guy, but he's not a loud dude. He's not like us, but he puts his head down. And he did work. In his first year in real estate, he made $100,000, sold over $5 million worth of real estate, just crushed it. So
amazing.
You're absolutely correct. There's not one way to be successful.
No, there's multiple. And then that you also brought up the other point is that you can be successful in your first year. You can, right? There is a future to be successful right from day one. Right. Yeah. It just, the average is low. I'd rather like undersell than oversell with the new agents.
Always. Like expect nothing.
And then
anything above
become greatness. Become greatness. I mean, you can in this field. It's one of the only fields where you could just like make hundreds of thousands of dollars within a few years, right? Like if you were taking the step ladder in the corporate world, that could take decades. You know what I mean? So it's an amazing and a beautiful industry to be in. It's just, you got to put the work in, and you got to realize that you're your own boss. Yes, we have brokers and all that, but we're 1099 people. We can't, as brokers, required to be in the office and work. We can recommend that you come to the office and work. We'll tell you what you have to do to be successful, but it's up to you to be your own boss, to wake your butt up every morning, come to the office, make those calls, reach out to those people. But that's your responsibility.
Yep. You know, I just talked to somebody about this the other day. I chair a committee for our association, and I was talking about how, you know, there's so many people that are out there that think this is so easy and you get to set your own hours and you just do whatever you want all the time because you are your own boss. I go, but I'm also my own employee. And sometimes I'm a crappy employee, and I have to remind myself that
that's true.
Would somebody else allow me to get away with the crap that I'm trying to pull right now? The answer is no a lot of times. And the difference is I kind of set those metrics for myself. And I think a lot of people getting into this, just they love the idea of being their own boss, but they don't think about, you know, it is a job. I also got to be an employee and come in and make this happen.
And we all need to have a reset from time to time. Like you mentioned, you've been in this industry for almost 2 decades now. You know, I mean, but every now and then we start slipping and we start doing things that, and in real estate, that's so common. It's like you close some big checks and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to buy a car. I'm going to, you know, ease up a little bit. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh God, I have nothing under contract. Like, you know, so every now and then we nobody's perfect. You got to reset yourself and you got to remind yourself, you know, that, hey, I got to keep doing this and I got to keep going, but nobody's going to tell you to do that. Right. So it's okay to slip, but then you got to get back on track, you know?
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, here's the thing you got to remember. When you're under all these contracts and you're doing the day-to-day stuff and everything else, you don't have anybody making sure you're generating any more leads either. And a lot of people get caught just doing the transaction and doing the tasks, and they completely forget about the other side of their business, which is way more important than getting those tasks done, which is you got to still be marketing yourself, because if your marketing ceases every time you put something under contract, you're starting and stopping consistently and you're never able to get really good traction.
One of my mentors, another one of our managers here in our company, Keith Kirkwood, he said, dude, your number one job is to find more leads always. Like you're in sales, like your number one job is, like he said, the first thing you do every morning, you block out a couple hours of lead generating. Like that is your number one job, because if you don't do that, like you're going to get bogged down with like the clients calling you, the inspector, the appraisal, this, that, blah, blah, blah. And then you get stuck in the transactional aspect of our job. Yes, that is our job, but we won't have that aspect of the job if we don't have clients, right? And so we have to continuously focus on lead generating.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I'm a big Brian Buffini guy. I've been a certified mentor.
I love him.
I've been a certified mentor with a lot of his programs and everything. And he talks specifically about how sales and marketing is more important than any other aspect. He's like, you got 3 hats. You got the CEO, the CFO, and the COO. And your CEO is in charge of sales and marketing. And it's 5 times more important than anything else you do. And so many people just think it's, oh, I got to do this task. I got to do this. I got to talk to those inspectors, all this. I systemized all that part of it. I've outsourced a lot of the follow-up on that stuff now to my assistant, because it's like, that's the smallest part of what I do. I focus on this lead gen all day, every day. Because if I'm not bringing in the leads, nobody's getting paid. My team.
You got to be your rainmaker. Exactly. You got to be your own rainmaker. And I'm glad you mentioned Brian Buffini. Like my first year in real estate, I felt I needed to do it right from day one. Yep. I actually signed up for his coaching for like 2 years. My first 2 years in real estate, I would go to his little conventions and this and that. Like, but it was smart though. Like, and that's another thing, when you're starting from day one, you got to make sure you start right, you know, and focus on you have a CRM, you know, like build a database of people that, you know, like people come in there. Like I work with agents all the time. They've been doing this for 30 years. I'm like, all right, so where's your CRM? They're like, what? Like, it's up here. I'm like, you know how many people are slipping through the cracks because of that?
All day, every day. You're just losing.
You're literally losing hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next decade. Like,
And and the other thing he talks about is like, it's the most basic thing. He's like, here's what I want you to do. I want you to call the people that you know. And I want you to rank those people as who's the most likely to give you business, who's the second most likely, and then just focus on that. And then I want you to go and see them.
The pop buys.
And then write a note once in a while and say, hey, it was great seeing you. And it's like, oh, that's so simple. And I'm like, that's the thing about this business. It's the simple stuff that makes you the most successful. It's those things you do that give you those relationships. That's the most overlooked part of it.
The notes, I think it's so underappreciated. That blew my mind. I love writing these notes because it's like a personal touch. And I write everyone notes. I wrote the CEO of our company. I wrote our admins at headquarters notes, like thanking them. People really appreciate that. And then like I was doing it a long time, and then finally I received a note from like, the head of our mortgage title and insurance, Dan Rand. And he was like, thank you for using our class. That was so nice. Like I felt so good that I got this letter thanking me. And this is another thing that me and my friend were talking about. He's in the insurance industry, and he was telling me, he's like, they don't like to sometimes thank the realtors. And like, wait, why? Like, and they're like, well, the deals are happening. They're getting the leads anyways. Like, I'm just like, no, like, and then he was also like, no, that's wrong, because you don't realize that they're not only that, right? Like every single person, and I hate to, think of people this way, but every single person is a universe, right? They have their family, their friends, their college friends, their coworkers, their this, that, grandparents, right? And you gotta realize that you gotta treat everyone amazing, right? And thank them for everything that they do. Even if what they gave you was like a 1% thing, you gotta thank them like it was 100% thing.
Right. And the other thing, let's talk about the elephant in the room that's coming our way right now. There's so many people that have been, crushing deals and focused on that part of the business for the past 2 years, while, let's talk about prices skyrocketing, number of multiple offers skyrocketing, and now inflation and interest rates skyrocketing. There's some stuff coming down the pipe that these people who haven't focused on those relationships, they're probably going to start seeing a little bit of a difference in their business.
Yes. And that's an unfortunate truth. It is just the unfortunate truth of our industry is that we do have ups and downs, right? And I think that the people who don't work hard and they don't do the business the right way, these next few years could be very difficult for them. I feel like a lot of these guys did not live through or experience the last few crashes, maybe. And I experienced it in a different way, right? Because, but I was working during that time. So it was still something where you really got to grind. Like you got to put in double the work for what you're making. Like in 2021, the best year in real estate ever, right? Where literally you did one showing and you got deals under contract, right? Versus what could be coming, right? Like a shift in the market. And so, yes, you and me, it's scary, but it's, maybe we got to be a little scared because you got to start being open to doing things that you normally wouldn't have done for deals and working harder. And we were talking about how, like, in the office, like, attorney review used to be a few days. Now it's like, I don't know if you guys haven't, I don't know how it works over where you are.
We're not an attorney state, but I know what you're talking about.
But you basically, like, things that would have normally taken 1-2 days, it's starting to take two weeks, 3 weeks to get us under contract. And I'm like, this is how it's going to be harder. So and we got to be ready for it.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I was actually just at a Buffini conference. I went to the masterclass out in Colorado. Yeah. Right. And he was talking about, all of that stuff, like, be ready for this. Recession's coming, blah, blah, blah. Get ready for that. But then he's like, here's the thing that you really need to focus on. He's like, I'm going to call it the Fab Four. And this is the stuff that I think anybody in any industry, if they would just focus on this, is going to kind of recession proof their business. And maybe you see a downturn, but this is going to keep you in the game. In the Fab Four, we're working on more referrals, just paying attention to your people, building those relationships, getting that stuff taken care of. If you get more referrals, real estate is a numbers game, more at bats, more sales. If you make more sales, you're going to have more net income. And then the fourth thing is, with that, give yourself more time off, because burnout is a real thing that a lot of people, I think, are experiencing with how crazy it's been. And I think they need to take that step back, that reset you talked about earlier, and really revitalize and reinvigorate themselves to come back and just keep hitting it. Because I think it's going to be a grind, like you said, that it's going to be different than it's been for a lot of these people. Yeah, in Indiana, 62% of our entire realtor force has not seen a downturn in the market. 62%.
That's a lot. Like, and that's really like, because we've grown the numbers of realtors like in an exponential amount in the last 10 years, more than we've ever really had. And a lot of these guys haven't seen it. And that's why, I start preparing some of these newer guys and like, look, like, you had it easy, like this is easy, what you did right now. And they're like, what? This is so hard. I'm like, this was easy, bro. Like now we got to get you ready. And like, sometimes you got to do the door knocking. Sometimes you got to make the calls that you don't like to do, like the ones that I don't like to do. Sometimes you got to be creative. And there's going to be a time now that we're going to have to really grind and do it. And yes, taking time off is really important to reset. And, because there are this was a big thing in the accounting world. It was like most people left the accounting world because they literally worked you to the bone, right? Yeah. So like if you do that, then you literally burn yourself out and you're done, right? So you have to realize, yes, this is a business, but then, just like in any other field, you have time off, you have vacations. Like you got to make sure that you set those times apart to make sure that when you come back, you're re-energized and refocused to hit the ground running.
Yeah, and I tell agents, I'm like, you don't have to have a team to get started in real estate, but what you need to do is have a good working relationship with somebody in your office, so that when you're like I could be like, yo, Harveer, I got to take a couple of days off. You mind covering my calls while I'm gone? And so many people are scared to ask those questions too, because they think they can't do that. And that's one of those things that we really push here at FC Tucker. You know, we're the Tucker family, and we have people who are always willing to help out with that kind of stuff. And so you're absolutely right on that.
No, it's important to do that too. And I feel like a lot of the, mentality has shifted a little bit sometimes in certain, like firms where it's like, okay, I'll do the showing for you, but I need this in return. It's like, you got to realize you got to help each other out a little bit, because we're going to come through a time now where like, you might need the help when you were, doing it this way. And it's not, it's not going to benefit you either. So it's like, you got to treat each other like family. You got to take care of each other. Like just today, somebody called me. It's like, hey, I can't make it to my appraisal. Can you go? And I was just like, all right, cool. Let's go. Like, I'll go. That's fine. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things you got to take care of your own. And I also think that realtors sometimes don't treat other realtors like their colleagues. I think it's super important because, a lot of times, and this is what I do, and people are always like, Harveer, why are you like trying to connect with all these other realtors? They're your competition. I'm like, no, I was like, that's the wrong mindset. I was like, these are the guys who have these listings that I might be bringing my buyers to, and they're going to accept me because they know I'm a good person. I'll get the job done. I've literally had my deals accepted with my clients offering less. Same. But they knew, they're like, no, but Harveer is going to get this job done. He's going to do it the right way. He's going to be a professional. And why? Because they knew me and because I reached out to them. And
again, it's those relationships, and that's those things that get overlooked so much. I've had the same thing where I've not necessarily been the best deal as far as financially, but they're like, Aaron, we want to work with you. We're not going to make you go all the way to this, but do you think people would be willing to do this? I'm like, let me get back to them and see what I can do. In Indiana, I don't know if everybody uses this term, but we call each other cooperating brokers.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm like, what do you think is going to happen if you come at me and you're yelling at me and you're making this a big deal? I'm like, you realize neither of us makes any money. Neither of our clients are happy if we're butting heads. Like, we're on the same team here, buddy. And I think the younger generation, the people I see coming into the business now, are kind of more of those cooperative people who want to learn to work together.
Oh, because they got people like you teaching them the right way to do things,
Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, hey, man, I am checking my time, and I know we've gone almost an hour now, and I got to get going to another appointment. But I do really, really appreciate this. I think this is some phenomenal content. This is the stuff that I want to start doing more of, which is educating more agents on how to build their business. It's something I've been super passionate about, and I knew that you and I would have some great things that we could kind of synergize on. So is there any one specific takeaway that you think that somebody who's thinking about getting into the business should be the number one thing they're focused on before they pull the trigger?
Budgeting is incredibly important in the beginning. So make sure that you look at your finances, make sure that this is a viable field for you. Like, last thing I want is somebody like not being able to pay rent or something. So especially for the new guys, just, make sure that you budget. And I feel like a lot of us realtors, we're 1099. We have to pay our taxes later. People don't realize they spend all their checks and they're like, wait, I have to pay tax on all that.
Yep.
So it's a scary truth in our field. And that's probably what I guess that would be something I would leave off. And I would love to connect with everyone who's listening here on Instagram, Real Estate Sing. I do almost everything on my Instagram, and I'd love to connect with you guys. Just let's be friends.
Absolutely. And we'll make sure to get all your social and everything. We'll link to all your stuff, your new YouTube channel. Now that we got you up and running, going there as well.
Finally got the vanity URL.
Nice. So, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for giving me a little bit of your time so we could help educate some real estate professionals on better ways to build their business.
No, and thank you so much for having me on. Honestly, it's always a fun time chatting with you, man. We always deep dive, and I feel like we touched on like a billion topics today, but I hope it helps somebody.
There's going to be some solid nuggets in there for sure. There's going to be a lot for me to go back and chop up and get back out there. So It'll be good stuff, man.
All right. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Have a good one, man.
See
ya.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of the Aaron Advantage podcast. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time to watch what we have to say. Harveer is an awesome dynamic speaker, and we are both super interested in coming and talking to you. So if you ever have any questions or want either of us to come and be speakers, or even if you want both of us, just let us know. You can contact Harveer here, and you can give me a call here, and we'd be happy to help.
Hey, this is Aaron Luttrull. Thank you so much for checking out the Aaron Advantage podcast. If you would like to be a guest, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. We're always looking for other people to interview.